I wanted to kind of finish with a bit of a discussion about 2050. This is that's the kind of context for this panel, and without doubt, by that point in time, I should say, by the way, it's way beyond any kind of published policy targets that we've got. So it frees me to kind of just make up what I think about maybe happening at that point. And without a shadow of a doubt, AI and technology and rapid advances in connectivity is going to unlock tremendous potential by that point. And maybe even the regulators will have jumped that really big hurdle to say how safe is safe enough for truly autonomous systems to be out there on the network. But I wanted to do two things. Firstly, actually, to present a bit of a provocation about how that might work, because I think there's a good version of how that can work and a far less a good version of how that may all come together. But I wanted to conclude at the end with a sense of, taking on board, I guess, a city perspective, how this might start to look in 2050. So let me, I guess, start on that provocation, because what do we know about 2050? It's complete crystal ball territory. But we know there's going to be more people. Almost certainly there's going to be more economic activity. So there will probably be more people and stuff being ferried around cities. We know the world's going to be electrified then. In 2050, net zero is going to be old news, which is a great thing. And I would also like to believe as well that by then, safety will be far more taken for granted, and KSIs, killed and serious injuries on the roads, those should be something that shock us if they happen very rarely, rather than at the moment where we're used to, for some reason, having thousands of those happen every year. And here's to the provocation, because how does autonomous freight fit into that world? Now, another thing that we know about that world is that actually a lot of the physical aspects of cities, towns and cities won't have changed by then. We're not going to redraw in most instances what the infrastructure is. Where are the main roads? Where are the tunnels and the bridges? And with that additional growth in economic activity and social activity and population will come an even more keen competition for limited space in urban settings, and that presents challenges. The second thing I wanted to just talk about at that point is something. Now, this is I'm going to talk about legislation from 1980, so that may well change a bit. But I talk on behalf of Transport for London with a strategic transport authority, but we're a highways authority. And in the Highways Act 1980, the first duty that it talks about that we have, and I'll quote this, it makes me chuckle a bit, is that we have a duty to assert and protect the rights of the public to the use and enjoyment of the highways. And I think the enjoyment one is interesting, but the point in that, it's not about use and enjoyment, it's the word public, because by public it is inclusive by design. It means all of the public, irrespective of age or gender or socioeconomic status or race or geography or postcode. It has to work for everybody. And I think this is the really interesting point. It was my second provocation, is that we have to make cities work centered around people and what people want. And I think it's a really interesting question about what does autonomous freight do if you start from the central organizing principle that this should be designed around and for the benefit of people. Okay, so let's dig a bit deeper into the provocation. And I like the references before to drones, because let's take that example. That's one version of autonomous freight. Look, currently delivery vans, and people will know exactly how many, but in a city like London, delivery van may be targeting maybe 120 drops a day. Let's just think through in practical terms, how many drones would it take to remove one single van from the roads? I don't know, 30? I mean, that depends on size and battery density. And as we all know, and there may well be an evolution in the technology by then, but at the moment, drones sound like an angry swarm of wasps. And what kind of, I think was it, did Miles refer to it as carnage outside? But what do you want your city to look like, to feel like, to sound like? Personally, I don't want it to be a constant hum of drones everywhere. Never mind the safety aspect of it. What do you want in terms of a city? Second, let's bring it away from the sky and bring it down to the ground. As we've seen it again in some of the illustrations previously shown, when it comes to droids or last mile robots, clutter is a fundamental element of, frankly, both the efficiency and the enjoyment, back to those two key points from the Highways Act, that really allow us to work effectively, to move effectively or not in a city, and fundamentally to enjoy what it's like. So these are fantastic technologies that we're looking at today, but there are always going to be people with better or worse visual capability, with better or worse physical mobility. And I think it would be a failure if, as an industry, collectively, we deliver something that worsens clutter, worsens accessibility. And we talk about last mile, never mind the last mile, let's talk about the last 3 meters. How do you get things from the boundaries of properties into buildings? You know, all of these issues that there's a significant risk of clutter and accessibility. Okay, but let me spend the last couple of minutes trying to weave this together into a future tech scenario for 2050, which has a core of humanity, has humans and people, and devising and delivering pleasant cities at the core of that. So the first element I want to say, which I think is key to unlocking this, is the curb. For me, I genuinely believe that it's one of the biggest potential strategic infrastructure assets in the city, which globally and particularly in London is bedeviled with fragmented and complicated governance and ownership. I would like, and I'm motivated and excited by, a vision about a seamless use of AI that creates active allocation of access for good utilization, for flexible usage. You know, pick up and drop off systems will be picking up and dropping off different things at different times of the day, at different times of the year, that will give this flexible usage that creates safe and efficient mechanisms for allowing people and stuff to move around cities. So that's number one. A sophisticated use of the curb, I think, can unlock a better version of the future. The second thing is actually to start from first principles to design human-centered last mile systems. So humans are not going to be taken out of the loop, but it's humans who have capabilities augmented by AI and autonomous systems. And these are systems where electrified vehicles will utilize and reimagine the types of land use that are becoming rapidly outdated, like car parks. We can transfer EVs into strategic low impact locations for the city. And maybe there's still humans in the loop here, where a standardized last mile delivery container box is taken by a human concierge to retain that human touch in that last mile delivery, the last mile touch point with the customer. And let's just pause for a second on standardized containers. Think how powerful that has been for the global shipping industry. Why not the same for urban containers? They could be designed to have the right dimensions so as not to create visual or physical obstruction on cycle tracks. We could build and design developments to create micro consolidation centers in standardized ways, vastly reducing cost and increasing efficiency. So essentially, human-centered last mile systems that create PUDO pick-up and drop-off systems where it's convenient and seamless according to the human perspective and the human flow of movement. Finally, AI in freight, I think, could be a real win if it's an integration with the systems that underpin the other functions of a city. And for example, intelligent electrification, whereby the freight system is part of the national or city energy system, exploiting smart charging, demand side response, etc., to give an efficient energy system. Or, and this one is interesting again for us as a city operator, where vehicles, which by that point will be hugely powerful sensing machines, can automatically and proactively help with the monitoring and maintenance of public assets, or flag and help to identify the root cause of road safety risks and to finally eliminate those from our roads. So, in conclusion, looking to 2050, it's hellish or heavenly. There's a way that if we let the technology develop for technology's sake, we could create a future that frankly we won't enjoy. And that's my final point, is that if we can do this, let's take first principles, human-centered from design, and that way we can create a vision of 2050 that will be both efficient and safe and zero emission and fundamentally enjoyable for people to live within that environment. Thank you.